Narrator and Real Madrid's Champions League winning sides of recent years. But the most influential players, coaches and teams since 1992 feature heavily, and therefore, while it wasn't the original intention, this book hopefully serves as a history of modern European football, by outlining its crucial innovations, including gegenpressing, playing out from the back, tactical periodization, tiki-taka, and, of course, zonal marking. Part 1. Vertball, 1992 to 96. Chapter 1. Individual versus collective. At the start of football's modern era, in the summer of 1992, Europe's dominant nation was the Netherlands. The European Cup had just been lifted by a Barcelona side led by Johan Cruyff, the epitome of the Dutch school of total football, while Ajax had won the European Cup Winners' Cup. And there was strength in depth domestically. PSV had won the league, Feyenoord won the cup. Holland failed to retain the European Championship, having won it in 1988, but played exciting, free-flowing football at an otherwise disappointingly defensive Euro 92, the last tournament before the back-pass change. Europe's most dominant player was also a Dutchman. That year's Ballon d'Or was won by Marco van Basten, while his strike partner at international level, Dennis Bergkamp, finished third. But the Dutch dominance wasn't about specific teams or individuals. It was about a particular philosophy, and Dutch sides, or those coached by Dutch managers like Cruyff, promoted this approach so successfully that football's modern era would be considered in relation to the classic Dutch interpretation of the game. When total football revolutionized the sport during the 1970s, the nature of the approach was widely associated with the nature of Amsterdam. The Dutch capital was the centre of European liberalism, a mecca for hippies from all across the continent, and that was reflected in Dutch football. Ajax and Holland players supposedly had no positional responsibilities and were seemingly allowed to wander wherever they pleased to create vibrant, free-flowing, beautiful football. But in reality the Dutch approach was heavily systematized. Players interchanged positions exclusively in vertical lines up and down the pitch, and if a defender charged into attack, a midfielder and forward were compelled to drop back and cover. In that respect, while players were theoretically granted freedom to roam, in practice they were constantly thinking about their duties in response to the actions of others. In an era when attackers from other European nations were often granted free roles, Ajax and Holland's forwards were constrained by managerial guidelines. Arrigo Sacchi, the great AC Milan manager of the late 1980s, explained it concisely. There has only been one real tactical revolution, and it happened when football shifted from an individual to a collective game, he declared. It happened with Ajax. Since that time, Dutch football has held an ongoing philosophical debate. Should football be individualistic, like the stereotypical depiction of Dutch culture, or be systematized, like the classic total football sides? During the mid-1990s, this debate was epitomized by the rivalry between Johan Cruyff, the golden boy of total football, now coaching Barcelona, and Ajax manager Louis van Gaal, who enjoyed a more prosaic route to the top. Both promoted the classic Ajax model in terms of ball possession and formation, but whereas Cruyff wholeheartedly believed in indulging superstars, Van Gaal relentlessly emphasized the importance of the collective. Van Gaal works even more structurally than Cruyff did, observed their shared mentor, Rinus Michels, who had taken charge of those legendary Ajax and Holland sides in the 1970s. There is less room in Van Gaal's approach for opportunism and changes in positions. On the other hand, build-up play is perfected to the smallest detail. The Dutch interpretation of leadership is somewhat complex. The Dutch take pride in their openness and capacity for discussion, which in a footballing context means players sometimes enjoy influence over issues that elsewhere would be the responsibility of the coach. For example, Cruyff sensationally left Ajax for Barcelona in 1973 because Ajax employed a system in which the players elected the club captain, and was so offended when voted out that he decamped to the Camp Nou. When you consider Cruyff's subsequent impact at Barcelona, it was a seismic decision.